Mr. Tony, let's look at the issue of pricing. The band A, for instance, went from 68 naira per unit to 225 naira. So sometimes, even when the electricity is there, people cannot access it because it is too expensive. The speed with which we went up in price, I mean, can you really justify that? We didn't go up gradually. We just flew from 68 to 225.
Yes, I think it's same with the broader reforms. I think that I've been of the view that, and maybe the president is wrong and I'm right, I don't know. I've been of the view that some of these reforms should be taken one after the other. The reforms all came like a flood, right? Similar for what's happening in the electricity sector. Now, there's always been that debate and argument between access. Now, access means it's available, and affordability. Available, if you can't afford it, then you can't access it, despite the fact that the door is open. Now, I think I'm of the view that the analysis is that it's just 15% of that population, and that they think it's people who can afford it. There are positives and there are negatives there, because you hear arguments around feeders, certain feeders even permeating areas where people can afford that amount. So it's feeder based, right? But people have had those arguments, and some people have also said that. So there's the positives. Some people then begin to have electricity if you can afford it. But is that fair? Is a debate. However, on the other side, there are debates that you're then saying that if I can afford, I pay what? I pay almost $1 million every month, sadly. Where I live, because an estate, and it's an IPP in this case, not even band A, because the disco facility is bad. So the question is, if I can afford it, not necessarily the case that everyone else can. Yeah. So there will always be positives and negatives. The intention is, this argument, I think it's even more expensive than places like Canada. There are debates that, they use more hydro and all of that. I think it's quite expensive. But it's come down anyway. I think it's about 206.50 kobo now, if I'm not mistaken, for band A. So yes, I think access first, and then as it becomes more attractive for investment, prices come down. Look at what happened even with PMS. It went as high as 1,004, 1,006, and now it's about 899. So I think that if states do enough, then you have enough space at the national grid, and prices can come down. Recall that we're also paying for inefficiency. So if you pay for inefficiencies, you're paying so much, right? So those inefficiencies need to go down. That's why NERC is forcing certain discos to be sold. I hear Ibadan, Kano is gone, Kaduna, Benin, still some disputes, but that's also going. So I think that it usually is the case that when you have such reforms, things can be that way. Things can initially be expensive. But if you continue to work at it, push, we will then begin to see more competition, more sources, more alternatives. People become more creative. Like a Glow at that time when some other guy said you couldn't do per minute or per second rather, and then he started to do the per second. So I expect that this can be the case. We can't directly compare electricity to telecoms, but it's still market, right? It's market forces of demand and supply. The more supply you have, prices then go down. Of course, you need to take into consideration the inputs, such as gas. But if we begin to have more hydro get connected, and we do an economic merit dispatch arrangement where the cheaper sources of electricity are dispatched before the more expensive, then you would have hydro and all of that, and that can drive down the price. Because I've had that argument with some guys at NERC that our electricity is even more expensive at the band A level than what you have in places like Canada and elsewhere. So you're right, but I think that you can look at it depending on what side of the table you sit. There are pros, to be honest, and there are definitely issues with it. And an issue around enforcement too. People have argued that when they have local issues beyond the feeder, then it's still a problem, because you say 20 hours from the feeder, but I have issues with my transmitter and even my meter. I have to change my meter and I have to pay for it. And I have to pay all of that money.
But didn't the government